Welcome back to the FTN NFL Team Preview Series here for the NFL Draft. I'm your host, Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer here at FTN. Follow me on Twitter at Randle Rant. We continue our mission to preview each and every one of the 32 teams. We are 1 week away. NFL Draft 1 week from tonight. It should be a national holiday. You know that. And today we're going to go to Pittsburgh to talk to one of the experts here, Brooke Pryor, ESPN NFL reporter covering the Steelers. Does an amazing job. Follow her on Twitter at BEPryor, Pryor. Brooke has agreed to give us a few minutes here to talk about the Steelers. Brooke, how you doing? Thanks so much for joining us.
I am not bad. I am excited that it is finally almost the draft because I don't know how many mocks I can make or consume. I just need it to happen. I'm sure like everybody right now.
Brooke, that's very funny. We have interviewed Carolina, Houston, Philadelphia in the last 24 hours. Everyone has said the same thing. They said, look, it's great, but it's a grind. We're ready to actually get to the picks and go from there. Listen, we'll start with Pittsburgh, little season recap here. Up and down season, but again, very solid, over 500. That's what happens here in Pittsburgh. Last few years, 8-8, 12-4, 9-7-1, and 9-8 here for the Steelers. So talk about a little recap of the season. They got through, no Ben Roethlisberger here, and in the end, they fought and clawed their way to another 9-8 season above 500. It's what Mike Tomlin does, right?
It is exactly what Mike Tomlin does, and I think the headline of this season is not only did they finish above 500, but they ended the season on a 7-2 streak, and they did all of that with rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett. Mm-hmm. He is, I think, the biggest thing to come out of last season, that this team seems to have an identity, a direction forward. I know that, there were a lot of gripes about offensive coordinator Matt Canada, some very fair, that the offense was not maybe as explosive as it could be, not as consistent, especially in the red zone, even in a goal-to-goal situation. But I do think that this team came out of the 2022 season, I don't want to say completely rebuilt because the Steelers don't believe in rebuilding, right? But I do think that having Kenny Pickett, have basically almost an entire season under his belt as a starter is huge going into 2023, especially when you look at the pieces around him. You have a guy like Najee Harris, another year of experience. George Pickens had a good rookie season, but I think that there's still a lot more untapped potential to go in that. The offense as a whole is in pretty good shape, although the offensive line, I think, is an area that can really be upgraded to protect Kenny Pickett, to make that offense just hum a lot more smoothly. And then defensively, this is a group that had to get through almost half the season without TJ Watt, a huge injury when he tore his pec in the first game of the season. But you saw the emergence of Alex Highsmith, Larry Ogunjobi, even though he was playing through some things, was banged up for a lot of last season. He really proved to be a valuable piece of that run-stopping defense. So I like what this defense was able to do, but I think that, the ceiling is much, much higher than what they showed last year. But, the fact that they were able to kind of get through a transitional year without Ben, changing quarterbacks in the middle, and stay above 500 is a huge testament to Mike Tomlin and just what he's able to do and how he can get the most out of a locker room.
Yeah, the Steelers always underrated here, especially when you get into the betting market, things like that. Tomlin as an underdog, you've seen those stats all over the place. And in this division, I think with a couple picks here and a savvy draft, they can make a move. Bengals, of course, very solid, but a lot of uncertainty with the rival Baltimore. You have Cleveland, of course, uncertainty. Watson came in, didn't play well last year. So I think the Steelers heading into this year are looking at a division title and making a run in the playoffs, even with Pickett just a second year.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a possibility, because I think the Mike Tomlin effect is so strong. I think that the way that this team was able to navigate a transition year like last year, come out on the other side, I do like kind of where they can go. The floor, though, we did see the beginning of the year, if they can't all get on the same page fast, then it can look pretty ugly. This offense has got to look better. They need to have more downfield throws. The run game cannot wait until the bye to get going. Kenny Pickett has got to continue to build that rapport with his receivers. You saw last year was very much a learn on the job situation because he didn't go through an offseason as the number one guy. He was taking second team reps all of training camp, second and third team reps, I should say, through training camp, OTAs, mini camp, even into the season until he unseated Mitch Trubisky as the starter. So I think that this is going to be a very competitive division, but one that the Steelers are not going to be out of.
Yeah, and you look at the wide receivers here, Deontay Johnson. You may, from an outsider, at least me, I'm in New Jersey, think it was a down year for Deontay Johnson, certainly, but still 86 receptions, 882 yards, and get to the 1,000 and no touchdowns. That was the big question. But what a year for George Pickens. And we saw the connection early from Pickett to Pickens here. And now you can fill us in. It looks like Allen Robinson will be joining the team.
Yeah. First of all, it's funny you mentioned the Pickett to Pickens. I was just down in the Strip District in Pittsburgh where they sell a lot of Steelers merchandise. That's the place everybody goes on game day and every weekend. But I saw several Steelers Pickett to Pickens shirts. So people here are very excited about that connection. But Allen Robinson, I really like that addition, and not because of necessarily how much juice he's going to add to the offense, because like this is a guy that's been in the league for 10 years. I don't know how much he's going to have left in the tank, dealt with some injuries last year, the foot injury. But to me, I look at the move similar to the Steelers signing Patrick Peterson early in free agency. This is a guy that has Pro Bowl capabilities, has played at a really high level. If you can get anything like that out of him, just squeeze the last little bit of production out of him, that's great. That's an added bonus. To me, I'm looking at the way that he can mentor the younger guys in that room, specifically a guy like George Pickens, because overall, this is a really young wide receiver core. I mean, Deontay Johnson has the most experience of the guys that are playing a lot. I mean, there are guys like Anthony Miller, who's been around a little bit, Gunnar Olszewski, who's been around a little bit. But as far as the guys that you're seeing on the field that are really having an impact, it's a young position group. And when you add a guy like Allen Robinson, I think that the way that he can mentor, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin III, who spent last year on IR, I really like him in the slot. I would not be surprised if the Steelers drafted a wide receiver. I don't know that we're going to see them go out and get Jordan Addison for Kenny Pickett, but this is a team that is really good at drafting receivers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they use, a 4th-round pick or later on a receiver just to add to the room to kind of restock. They did trade away Chase Claypool last year. But I think that Allen Robinson can be that guy because he was that guy for Darnell Mooney in Chicago. So looking at him for just what he can kind of impart his wisdom to that group and to the offense as a whole, I think that's a really savvy move by the Steelers. They're essentially paying $5 million for a mentor and a guy that has explosive capabilities on the field. But, I mean, it was a great deal for them, and all they had to give away was a 7th-round pick.
Well, you talked about draft picks. Let's get to pick 17 here. Among the mock drafters like myself, everyone wants Joey Porter Jr. here to go to Pittsburgh. Interested to see your take. For some reason, I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like they could go a different direction here. Not that his son isn't a great player. I certainly think he will be. But I know the legacy there is strong. I'm just thinking they may go a different direction. What are you hearing about that first pick, 17th overall here for the Steelers?
Yeah, I think that Joey Porter Jr. is absolutely in play. He had an official visit here. It didn't count against the top 30 visits because he's considered a local prospect, a guy who went to Penn State. The Steelers, I don't know what the Steelers love more than football bloodlines, probably Lombardi's. But other than that, it's like a 1A, 1B situation, and one directly leads to the other. But the Steelers love tradition. They love finding players who have a strong background in football, in professional football. And that's because, as Mike Tomlin says, the NFL is not a mystery to these guys. The curve, the learning curve is not as steep because they grew up around it. There isn't the culture shock the way that there is for some other guys. And so I think if Joey Porter Jr. is available with that pick, it's a home run pick for them because they do need a corner. Having Patrick Peterson there, you have a ready-made mentor there for Joey Porter Jr. He has the NFL bloodlines, and I think that just the type of press corner that he is really fits into the Steelers system. So I think if he's there, that's a no-brainer pick. But also if he's gone, because there are some quarterback-needy teams ahead of the Steelers, an offensive tackle, another good pick. The Steelers brought in several during their top 30 visits. And then a couple wild card picks, defensive tackle, a guy like Kalijah Cansey, who played at Pitt. He's someone that I wouldn't be surprised for the Steelers to take a look at, either with that number 17 pick or if he drops to number 32. The Steelers have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds because of that Chase Claypool trade. That would be a huge get. And then also maybe even an edge guy. They do need depth at that position. I don't think they necessarily need to get that with their first pick, but if the right guy is there, I think that the way that Omar Khan has gone through this free agency has really let the Steelers have flexibility with that first pick to kind of see how the board falls and draft the best available guy.
Brooke, last question. Amazing stuff, and we'll get you out of here. In the fantasy world, we love Najee Harris and we love Mike Tomlin because he's very predictable. There's not really a running back by committee here. We saw last year Jaylen Warren did some things. So talk about the running back position, how you think it's going to go. Are they going to reduce the workload a little bit for Harris? Could it be Warren? What do you see here in the running back? Because, of course, in the fantasy world, that's such a big deal for us, and it's death taxes and Tomlin running backs for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's up to Najee, he is never coming off the field. This guy loves being out there. He is a workhorse, but I don't think that that's the smartest thing for the Steelers. And I think that they figured out later in the season that it does benefit them to mix in Jaylen Warren more often because Najee did get hurt. I mean, he was injured in preseason and training camp last year, and that lingered for quite a while. And once he started to share the load a little bit, a 70-30 split. It's by no means a running back by committee. Najee is still going to be the bell cow back here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jaylen Warren get mixed in there a little bit more just to preserve Najee's health through a long season to make sure that he is healthy when it matters most late in the year.
Brooke, we appreciate a few minutes here. She does outstanding work, folks, for ESPN, NFL reporter covering the Steelers, Brooke Pryor, at BE Pryor on Twitter. Brooke, thank you so much. You're on fumes, as every beat reporter is. We can't wait. We're going to be celebrating. We'll have a live show here next Thursday, but Pittsburgh at 17 could be Joey Porter Jr., certainly going to be a talented player for a Steeler team that I think is very much alive in a Super Bowl trip this year. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.